What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Crossover U College Hoops Talk podcast, which you can find as always right here on the Crossover channel. My name is Kanaye, and on today's episode, we get to talk about two guys who have definitely been some of the bigger talking points of college basketball over the last 2 days. Those guys being Milos Uzan, who announced his return to Houston, Kelvin Sampson getting back his lead point guard from this past year's national championship appearance team, which I think is really, really important and crucial to get him back for that Houston Cougars program. And the other guy being Richard Pop Isaacs, who was committed to Houston, but I think kind of knew that Milos Uzan was going to pull his name out of the draft and come back to school, which I think caused Pop to ultimately decide to not fully commit to Houston anymore, but re-enter into the portal and commit to Texas A&M and play for Bucky McMillan, which I honestly like the fit there too. But I'm going to talk about just everything that surrounds the whole situation with that in this episode today. But before we get into that, as always, if you like this podcast or anything else you see on this channel, it really does help if you engage with our videos in any way you can, whether it's liking them, subscribing to our channel, or just telling other people about it. It really does help with being able to help drive YouTube's algorithm and get these videos out to a larger audience. So let's get right into it. I think a good place to start probably is Pop Isaacs. This past year, he played at Creighton, but only played in 8 games before he tore his ACL. And while he did honestly play really well in those games that he was healthy, averaging 16.3 points, nearly 5 rebounds, almost 4 assists, you know what he brings as a scorer, and what he is really dynamic playing out of that kind of lead guard two spot. Where he was at when he was healthy with Creighton. It's hard to ignore that Creighton kind of got better once he got hurt. Now, I very much feel that he thrives a lot more in scenarios where he can just be given the ball and asked to go make a play, kind of where in a system where isolation scoring is more so valued rather than team play where you're running sets, you're running actions, getting guys more open looks rather than looking for guys to just score in isolation, which is why I really do like this Texas A&M fit. Bucky McMillan's system really, really favors and looks for guys to get ideal one-on-one matchups to go and score in isolation. And when you combine knowing what Pop Isaacs can do in situations like that, on top of their other ads in the portal, like getting Rylan Griffin, who has Final Four experience and was a really, really good shooter until this past year in Lawrence, Kansas, which I'm willing to just chalk that up as a really bad down year for all those guys and just toss it out the window. That goes for Rylan and AJ Storr, Zeke Mayo if he gets another year of eligibility, and Flora Badunga, but who actually was pretty good for Kansas. But I'm willing to toss that out the window. I think Rylan Griffin's going to have a great bounce back year for Texas A&M and Bucky McMillan. And on top of that, they also got Mackenzie Mbaku from Indiana, who I really wanted UConn to go after if Alex Caravan didn't announce his return to Stores for another year. But a really, really talented player. And between those three, I think you have a great core of guys who are able to go and get buckets. Of course, Pop Isaacs. I think there's a real world here where in the system, Pop has a career year and is the potential leader in scoring in the SEC this next season, which I'm honestly might pick him to be the leading scorer in the SEC this year, just considering how much that system favors isolation scoring and guys just being able to take advantage of mismatches, and being able to just have the ball and go make a play, go get a bucket. And I think that's something that Pop likes to do, and I think he's going to thrive in that system a lot. And it honestly makes Texas A&M a top 25 team in my eyes. I really do. I think there's a big hole to fill with them losing Wade Taylor the fourth. Pop Isaacs is going to come in and replicate a lot of the scoring that Wade Taylor was able to bring, probably even more if I'm being honest. I think Wade Taylor is a lot more of a better all-around player than Pop Isaacs, but Pop, I think, when it comes to scoring, is a little bit better than Wade Taylor was. But I'm really excited to see how Pop plays with Texas A&M. I know there is some legal troubles with him, which I don't want to really get into just because it's some strictly basketball podcast, not anything other than that. But of course, you hope those rumors aren't true for Pop Isaac's sake. And it doesn't become a distraction for that program because they have a chance to actually be pretty good this year. Now let's get into the Houston Cougars and Milos Uzan. Milos Uzan this past year was a crucial part of their Final Four national championship appearance team. They definitely do not make the run that they go on if they don't have Milos. Really making a jump in his junior year. Of course, he's going to be a second year transfer. That meaning that this past year was his first. He transferred into Houston and played his first year at the high major level with Houston this past season. And now he's going to his second year. And I really, really do like it when you get second year transfer guards. I think they always tend to be really, really good in their second year. I just think a lot of it is attributed to just having a full year of being in that system under your belt. I think it's so hard for transfers in the first year to be successful or at least completely lights out. Just considering, especially at the point guard spot, there's so much you have to learn in coming into a new school with a new coach and a new system. You have to learn everything that you run, both offensively and defensively, and you have the reins in your hands as the point guard. I think Tristan Newton is a perfect example where he kind of struggled in his first year at UConn, and then his second year, or as the year went on in his first season, being his senior year, he was able to kind of grasp what it really meant to be the next great UConn guard. And then going into his grad year, his second year at UConn, he was, of course, the best point guard in the country, first team All American Bob Cousy. Um, and I think Milos Uzan has a chance to do something similar to that. Terrence Shannon was another great example. His second year at Illinois was awesome. He was a really, really good player. Probably should have been an All American that year, lottery pick as well. But of course, we know what went down with those allegations against him. Thankfully, he was proven innocent. But you definitely do feel for the guy that those false accusations took away what would have been a lot to add to his trophy case. But again, let's focus on Milos Uzan here. He's one of the topics of this video. This past year, he averaged 11.4 points per game, 3.1 rebounds, almost 4.5 assists. I definitely think he's going to increase stats wise across the board. I would like to see him become a little bit more efficient from the field overall, but he definitely did improve as a 3-point shooter this past season as opposed to what he did his first 2 years in college. And again, being under Kelvin Sampson, now going into his second year, having a full year under his belt in that system, he knows what Kelvin Sampson wants. He knows how to run the plays, knows how to execute the offense, knows what Houston wants to do defensively. I think he's going to be great. Potential All-American, honestly. I would make the argument that he was a top 3 point guard in the country in the final 2 months of the season. Um, and I just think he's going to take a lot of pressure off the young guys on this team. There's five stars coming in, so a lot of freshman talent. I think the number one thing that you could kind of point as Houston's weakness this past season was kind of the lack of athleticism and talent. They're not lacking in either of those categories anymore. They have great retention now that they've brought back Milos Uzan. You're bringing back Emmanuel Sharp and JoJo Tugler, who are really, really crucial key foundation pieces for this past year's national championship appearance team. And I honestly think it's really neck and neck between both Houston and Purdue for who I view as the number one team going into this year. It's really tough. I think right now I lean very slightly towards Purdue, but if you tell me you're putting Houston on one, I can't argue with you at all whatsoever. And who knows, tomorrow I might wake up and decide, hey, I think Houston's the best team in the country going into next year. And getting Milos Uzan back was so important. I think he's going to take a lot of pressure, like I just talked about, off guys like Chris Jr. And I forget the other freshmen's names coming off the top of my head. But again, I think it's so important what Kelvin Sampson's done in building that culture in Houston and having continuity where, yeah, you lose a lot of important guys from this past year's team like LJ Cryer, like Juwan Roberts, but you have continuity of guys who have that experience. They know the toughness that you need to bring when you are a Houston Cougar. They know what the culture calls for, both offensively and defensively, just hard over hype, to the tenacity and energy that you require to bring every single practice, every single game. And just having that continuity year to year, I think is so important for teams. And it is I do believe there is not necessarily a formula to follow in roster construction, but I definitely think there is somewhat of a blueprint. Maybe you call it formula. I do think there is some. I think a lot of it's luck, but I do think a lot of it is you need program guys that you're going to be able to retain for 2 to 3 years. You need continuity. That's an important, crucial piece of college basketball. You need guys who are going to be the building blocks of your culture year in and year out. And Kelvin Sampson has done that with, again, bringing back Milos Uzan, Manuel Sharp, who, by the way, is going to have a massive chip on his shoulder, just considering him kind of fumbling the play in the final seconds of the national championship game. I'm sure he's going to come into the season so motivated. I'm super excited to see how Manuel Sharp bounces back from that. And JoJo Tugler, who's going to be the bigger role. I loved watching him in the NCAA tournament this past year, and I think he's going to be really, really good. But yeah, you have continuity of your culture guys, and you supplement adds like good transfers or 5-star freshmen, which Houston has a lot of in that department this year. So I'm really, really excited to see how this Houston Cougars program plays this next year. Getting Miles Uzan back was huge. I'm super excited to see him play. I think he's going to be one of the premier point guards in the country this upcoming season. And hey, all the credit in the world goes to Kelvin Sampson. What he's built in Houston is incredible. I very much felt that in a way. I thought that Houston that might have been Kelvin Sampson's last chance to win a national championship that last year. And for him to not win it, it might have been that chance kind of seeping out the window. But I think Kelvin Sampson's hit both him and the Houston program right back in a position to win a national championship. And Kelvin Sampson hopefully maybe gets a good ending where he goes out on top, which I would definitely like to see if UConn is not winning a national championship. But again, I think that takes care of everything I have for this episode today. Like I talked about throughout this episode, I really like the fit with Pop Isaacs going to Texas A&M. I think he's going to be stellar there as a scorer. And of course, getting Miles Uzan back was super important for Houston, and they did it. And I think that's going to make them a premier top 5, top 3, potential preseason number 1 team going to next year. I definitely got in my top 3. But again, as always, please engage with our videos in any way you can. And until the next episode, I'll see you all next time.